Shalom and welcome back to Flipping Pages, Stirring Sauces. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbatah. Happy Sabbath, Sabbath family. Shout out to Vaughn Union. Love you right back. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. And I would like to say Tawada and gratitude to all of you who have liked, subscribed, shared, and commented.
We brought in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which wasn't passed by the Prime Minister. It was passed by 9 provinces and the Prime Minister. It's a national document that applies to everyone here today and everyone all over Canada. So understand, except for the creation of the country,
Whoops. Let's try that again.
In 1981, we brought in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which wasn't passed by the Prime Minister. It was passed by 9 provinces and the Prime Minister. It's a national...
I guess it's not going to cooperate today.
In 1981, we brought in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which wasn't passed by the Prime Minister. It was passed by 9 provinces and the Prime Minister. It's a national document that applies to everyone here today and everyone all over Canada. So understand, except for the creation of the country in 1867, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is by far the most important document in the history of our country since we were a country. It is the most important one because it applies to you and me equally. Yes. Every individual on this planet is unique. Like every snowflake is unique, every individual is unique. And therefore, when you get a document which says that I have these freedoms and I have these rights, that means every single one of us, from Tofino to Iqaluit to Bonavista to the Niagara Peninsula, every Canadian is equal and has equal rights before the law. Section 2 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, what does it say? It says you have freedom of expression, you have freedom of conscience, you have freedom of religion, you have freedom of expression, and you have freedom of the press. What else does it say? It says you have freedom to associate. You have freedom to assemble. And in Section 6 it says you have the right to travel anywhere in this nation, anytime. And you even have the freedom to leave this country if you so want. But most importantly for a lot of people who now see this, it also says in Section 6, you have the right to pursue a livelihood anywhere in this country. You have the right to pursue a livelihood anywhere in this country, and they are taking jobs away, inside the government and outside the government, and threatening others of their jobs. And then number 7 says, Section 7 says, you have the right, listen to this one, to life, liberty, as Dr. Agassi talked about, and Dr. Hoff talked about. And you also have the right to your security of the person. Nobody is allowed to touch you unless you agree. And then Section 15 says, to top it all off, we weren't satisfied with those three. We topped it off by saying every person in Canada is equal before the law. You're just as equal as Justin Trudeau. You're just as equal as John Horgan. You're just as equal as Adrian Dix. And by damn, you're really just as equal as Bonnie Henry. You don't have to take a back seat to anybody. No. You have your rights and your freedoms as an individual. This business of group rights and this business of lobby group rights and all the rest of it completely disguises your rights as an individual. And we got to be very careful going forward that we don't lose these rights to these groups, that they take over and dominate the government of British Columbia or the government of any province. You must remain steadfast that as an individual you come first. The groups come second that you form with. And that's very important for any democracy anywhere in the world. When the individual gets submerged by a group or something else, that's the beginning of the decline of our democracy. So those four sections of the Constitution and of the Charter of Rights are absolutely sacrosanct, okay? And then we've got people out there who are trying to say to me and to others, I don't know if they think we don't know the difference, that somehow Section 1 of the Constitution, I know it's cool, I know it's getting evening, but you got to listen to this. Somehow that Section 1 forgives the government. And that they can go ahead and override those other four sections I just mentioned. I got news for them. There are four tests that had to be met. Well, first of all, that Section 1 doesn't even apply to our circumstance, because when we wrote that section, the whole idea was this, that the only way you could override these sacrosanct rights and freedoms of individuals, which if there was a dire situation in the country, like war or insurrection, a virus from which 99% recover is no war and no insurrection. Even if you tried to make it, if you tried to squeeze it to apply, if you tried to bend it to make it try to apply to this circumstance, what did you have to do? You had to do four things. Number one, justify? No, that wasn't heavy enough. Demonstrably justify what you're doing. Okay? Okay, is that all? No. You have to demonstrably justify that by law. That meant a new law, not the existing laws that they're using. New circumstance means new law. Where's the new law? They never went to the Parliament. They never went to the provincial assemblies to get a new law. They tried to use the existing law. They skirted around the Charter of Rights and Freedoms by law. Number three, using reasonable limits. And number four, you had to do all of those other three, but remember, it had to be done in a way that was consistent with a free and democratic society. What they're doing is not consistent with any free or democratic society. It's more consistent with a totalitarian society. So don't be fooled by those who try to tell you that somehow you can skirt around the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I was there, I helped write the damn thing, and they're wrong, and we're right. We didn't wait from 1867 to 1981 to now 2021 to see all of our rights suddenly wiped out for callous and powerful reasons by those who forget from whence they came. Ours is a country worth fighting for. Listen to me, I was 7 years old before I became a Canadian. I wasn't born a Canadian. But I can tell you right now, I'm a Canadian now, and I want to defend what we've had and what we know we can continue to have in this country. And you and me are not going to take a back seat to all those who are trying to somehow excuse what happened. We're not going to take a back seat to these people. We're going to stand next, beside them or above them and tell them that we want a prosperous, secure and free Canada for the future, for our children and from our grandchildren, and you have no right to try to steal that away from us. From Tofino to Iqaluit to Bonavista to Niagara Peninsula, we must become united as Canadians, as free Canadians, understanding our history, understanding the history of our planet, and put that all in context for tomorrow, so that we can be a proud, free country in the northern part of North America. We're not going away, Mr. Horgan. We're not going away, Mr. Trudeau. We're going to stand and be counted and to make sure that we restore the charter rights and freedoms which everybody fought so hard to get. Stay around. Thank you for coming.
Hallelujah! You know, I was going to talk about my experience with Big Pharma, but I'm going to put that aside for another time, because that was a very riveting and powerful speech by one of the authors of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So, what I was going to talk about paled in comparison. So, I will leave it aside for another time. But what I did want to talk about was the Pure Later issue, because it ties into that. And I did say that I was going to define lingam, because a lot of people don't seem to know what that word means and wanted to know what it meant. And in the context that I used it, it represents the male phallic, the penis. That's what a lingam is. There are other definitions. I think in some religions it also represents the god of fertility. But in the sense that I used it, it represents the penis. And Amkar Maharaj, he still has not forwarded the documentation to me that I requested. He's ignored my request, which is a norm with the Canada Council of Teamsters. They seem to think that we work for them and not the other way around. No, Amkar Maharaj and Canada Council of Teamsters, you work for us, and that is evidenced by the $67 that you take out of my pay every month. Now, I want to read something that was sent out to one of my my coworkers. You see, Amkar Maharaj and the Canada Council of Teamsters think that I'm a little nobody and they don't have to respond to my requests. But on the What date was that now? 27th of January. Karma Haraj sent a message to one of my coworkers, and what he basically stated was Teamsters Local Union 938 and Purelator had the arbitration hearings for the company Big C policy on Saturday, January 29th. We are waiting for the arbitrator ruling. We do not have a timeline for the ruling as this is within the arbitrator's control. We will respond to all the members' grievances upon receipt of the arbitration decision. It's a big lie. And I'll tell you why it's a lie in a minute. Now, for 4 months, they couldn't get an arbitration date. But I started pressuring them and threatened to go to the labor board. So all of a sudden, they have an expedited arbitration date. Was it the fact that I stated that they are not earning their $1.5 million per month and that they have to earn their money? Could that have been it? Was the fact that I threatened to go to the labor board in writing if we didn't get any movement? Could that have been why they secured an expedited arbitration date within a week and a half of me threatening to take action? Was the fact that I named Canada Council of Teamsters in my complaint to the Labor Relations Board, was that a factor? Well, I'm going to read something to you from the collective agreement. The collective agreement says it says decision within 30 days. The arbitrator must render his decision within the 30 days following the final date of the hearing. However, at the request of the arbitrator, the time period may be prolonged by agreement between the two parties. We don't want we don't want this arbitration to be prolonged. It's what? Almost 6 months? I think it's been prolonged enough. So, if the hearing was the 29th, we better hear from the arbitrator by March 1st. Because that's what would be in compliance with what is written in the collective agreement and not the lie you try to tell somebody that it's within the arbitrator's control. Listen, the arbitrator has to follow the rule of law, okay? So what the arbitrator did, he listened to the evidence, and now he has to go look at the law to see how the law applies to this and make a decision based on the rule of law. I don't know what kind of case was presented to the arbitrator, but we have the right to the transcripts of the arbitration hearing. And Hamkar Maharaj, I would like copies of that transcript because you work for me and not the other way around. And you work for the members of Local 938. And Canada Council of Teamsters need to understand that and know that. And we need to eat that and speak it daily until they understand that the status quo no longer exists. Now, the other thing is, let it be known that most of these videos that I've put out there were sent to John Ferguson, President and CEO of Pure Later Inc., as well as Fatima Resendez, Senior HR Business Partner of the Ontario Hub Pure Later. And as I've stated, lingam is the male phallic, meaning the penis. And I demanded Ronald Robinson's resignation by January 28, 2022 for his inappropriate and unprofessional behavior with certain female subordinates. Not only was his relationship with those female subordinates inappropriate, but it was inappropriate and unprofessional for him to videotape himself in these compromising situations and share those videos in the workplace. If he's not willing to resign, his superiors need to terminate him for lying to us about Rohan Kalu and for his inappropriate behavior with certain female subordinates. He's not the only manager who is guilty of this behavior. And failure on the part of Pure Later's upper management to act will result in the pursuing of some of the other avenues that are available to me and others in order to remove this deviant from his position of authority. He is a very vengeful and abusive deviant who would lie to our faces, tell a lie on one of his subordinates in front of a lot of people. I wasn't the only one there, and thinks he can get away with that. Listen, a lot of people have been terminated from their positions at Pure Later for incidents that are far less serious than this one. But anyway, like I said, that was a wonderful speech by the only surviving member of the people who authored the Charter, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, or Freedoms and Rights, one of them. But anyway, my hat's off to the truckers, and stay your course. Canada is behind you, and it's not a fringe minority. The majority of Canadians are behind you because we value our freedoms and our rights, and we're not going to let anyone take them away from us, let alone a little rat hiding out in a hole. You're not going to take away our rights and our freedoms. And as I've said before, Goliath keeps running headfirst into David. I am at peace with myself. I am at peace with my world. I am at peace with my Creator, the Most High, the Ancient of Days, Yahweh, Hahaya. I wish you Baruch and Shalom.